Hi, everybody. It's me, Julia Lowther from Little Metal Foxes, and I'm here instead of Jennifer Stenhouse tonight because she's not feeling well. But Tooltip Tuesdays goes on even when Jennifer's not here. And I think Chris Anderson is going to be joining me here in a second. Aha, there he is. And let's see, how do I let him in? I have to invite him or something. Accept. There we go. All right. I got it. I'll figure it out. Let's see. He's coming in. We got a few people. There he is.
Hey,
Hi, Chris. How
how's
are
it going?
you?
Doing all right.
I'm good. I'm good. I was just saying that I'm sitting in for Jennifer, who's not feeling entirely on top of the world right now. These things happen. It's funny. I was feeling kind of tired today, too. And it's like, it feels like today was the shift from summer to fall. Like today was the day. I got up. It was
The
kind
weather
of,
changed.
the weather changed. It was kind of misty and foggy. And I'm like, and my throat had a little scratch in it. And everybody was tired. All my students have been tired. I've been tired. And so I was like, it's okay. Here we are. It's fall.
I'm in the middle of prepping for a trip to Idaho and Montana for the
Wow.
Idaho Falls Gem and Mineral Association.
I saw that you were going to be there in person. You're doing that with Pepe Tool?
So it's me and Pepe, but it's going to be me.
Oh, of course it is.
So
It's the Chris Anderson show.
I get to wear two hats.
On your horns, one in each horn. Yeah.
One in the horns. Yep, exactly. So, and then after that, I'll probably head up to Montana to do a little bit of leisure mining.
Nice, nice. It's always good to have some leisure activity built into these
If
work.
I'm going to be over in eastern Idaho, I might as well stop by Montana.
Right, why not? Get some nice Montana sapphires or something.
Yeah, exactly. So we're doing tube tonight.
I think so. I think what Jennifer said was that she's like, I was going to talk about tube bending, and I have these. Those look familiar. These are, I get the little package thing out. I've had these for years, and they do actually work. They are pretty low tech. They're from K&S, so it's like the people that you can buy the short lengths of tubing.
Okay.
So these are from K&S Engineering. This was the original package.
Yeah.
And their size range, it says 1/16 to 3/16 outer diameter, brass, aluminum, and copper tubing.
Okay.
So you can take these little guys, it's a spring.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of flared on one end.
All right.
And you can take a piece of tubing. So here's my brass, piece of brass tubing. And you can slip it in, and then you can bend it. And then you can pull this out, and then it's bent.
And it just supports it all, huh?
And so, but the reason that it works and doesn't collapse, because that's the issue with tubing.
Yeah.
The issue with tubing is not the bending. The issue with tubing is the collapsing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when you just bend a tube, it just flattens it.
It pinches.
So
it needs to be fully supported.
Yeah, the point of this is it's a spring, it's a hollow tube, and so it's supporting it all the way around as you're bending it. And so these, for a little low-tech thing, they actually work pretty well. If all you want is a bit of a curve.
Yeah.
I don't know that I think you might be able to, I've never tried to do like a full circle. I'm not even sure I can get this one back in here. Once you pull it out, it's really hard to get. You can get the tubing out, but it's really hard to get it back in, right? Because it has to bend around the corner. So I'm not sure I can get it.
I don't think I've ever seen that particular tool before.
Particular solution.
Yeah.
So see if I can, let me get it back into the end there. There's the end coming out. Let me see if I can make it go into a full circle. And then.
Now, is that tube annealed?
I don't know. It was a piece of, it was whatever came. I didn't anneal it. Let's put it that way.
All right.
It's in whatever state it came in.
Probably not a needle bin. A lot of that stuff from that company comes basically drawn over a mandrel, and
Right. So, and this is brass. So
yeah,
the brass is also a little harder, but I've got it. Okay, so I've got it all the way around so that it's.
yeah.
Oh, I put the wrong kind of bend in it there. All right, let's see if I can flip this off. Of course, I may have gotten it on here, and now I won't be able to get it off. There we go. So flipping it, you can see the end is there.
Yeah.
There's the tip. So I could probably bend it a little more, because the question is, can you get a complete circle, right?
Yeah.
And so then I can take this off. Let's see how far I can go. This is good. Will it work? I think it's because I've got a bend in it. There we go. So now it's there. So I should be able to keep bending it and keep slipping the tube, the spring part off.
Okay.
As I'm bending it around.
Yeah. That seems to
and
work
then
pretty
as
well.
I go, I can keep. All right. So you can see I've got it overlapped.
Yeah.
And then you just keep moving the spring. It actually, for making circles, like if you're making hoop earrings or something,
Yeah.
if you were doing this around a mandrel, you would get a better, you'd get a more consistent circle. Yeah. But, I've taken this foot-long length of tubing and curled it into rings.
Yeah, not bad at all.
Not bad at all. And these are inexpensive. They come in, like I said, they come in a set. I'm almost done with this thing. Now I'm like, can I go all the way around? Which, I think I did pretty well. So.
Yeah, I don't think it did bad.
There you go.
Do you want to see how to make one of those?
Make one of these guys?
No, a bending tool.
Okay, so I have seen. So this is the set I have, right? These are the things, and they're 1, 2, 3, 4. They're 5 different sizes, but they only go from 1/16 to 3/16. So this is kind of limited. If you want to make them bigger than that, you're going to be tricky. So have you made the J-shaped ones that you put through a draw plate? Yeah, man, I wanna make some of those.
So you let's do it. All right. So
I'm still impressed with my little guy here. Oops, I lost your audio. Chris, can you hear me? Chris, can't hear you. No audio. So I don't know what happened.
How about
can you
now?
hear me? Okay.
I hit the wrong button. So,
okay, that does happen.
You don't actually need a draw plate.
Ooh, okay, show.
So draw plates are kind of one of those things where, to those of you who don't know, it's what you a bunch of little holes in it. You'll take wire to taper it down at the end and then pull it through the plate to make a smaller diameter wire or a different profile wire. What I have in front of me is a piece of stainless steel that I have drilled 3 holes in because
yeah, that's a good point. You don't need a draw plate. You just need something with something solid with a hole in it.
Yep.
Good point.
So
yeah.
Then I have these guys that are, let's see, hooked.
Yeah.
Both of these are what they refer to as music wire or spring material. And then I have a larger one. That's not it.
Tool steel, I'm guessing.
Yep, larger. This one's stainless.
Ooh, wow. Okay, putting a bend in that must have been fun.
Oh, yeah. So when you're bending this, you want to make sure that you do not kink it or flatten it on any way because it's going to interact with the inside of the tube. So
right. So if there's a burr or any little bit sticking off the end of that wire, it's going to gouge the end of your tube the whole way down.
Exactly. So let's see if
the end of that wire has to be smoothed off. No burrs, no nasty bits.
Exactly. Nobody wants nasty bits.
Nobody wants nasty bits. Not even yours, Chris.
No, nobody wants my nasty bits. All right.
So then you thread a piece of tubing on it.
Well, there's a little secret to that as well.
Yeah, because you need a pusher piece of tubing, don't you?
You do. So
I know these things. I just haven't made one.
There's one. Is this going to fit? This one. This one is not going to fit that, but it will fit another one. So I have a piece of copper tubing here.
Okay.
And I'm going to thread it on my mandrel.
Uh-huh. The mandrel that has the little bend in the end.
Yep. So lack of a better term, we're going to call this fella a mandrel.
Right.
Because that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Let's call it a slip mandrel. I like that idea.
A slip mandrel.
Yeah, because it's going to slip.
Or a twirl mandrel, because it's going to twirl things.
So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some lubrication to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's going to be super important for this to work the way that you want it to.
Right. What are you using as your lube?
I'm using the blade butter.
Oh, yeah. From Pepe?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You can use beeswax. You can use motor oil. And so what I've done is I've taken another piece of smaller tubing, smaller in length, same diameter.
Right. Same diameter. So it's a little pusher piece. Right.
Yeah. So you can also replace this piece with a spring. And that spring does the same thing as it just kind of follows the end of the tube. So
good point. Actually, so depending on the size of the ones you're doing, you might be able to use these springs as your pushers.
Yeah, you could.
And then they're already pre-made, which is nice.
So now I have my rod through the proper size hole.
Uh-huh. And the proper size hole means the mandrel will slip through it, but the tubing is stopped.
Correct.
At the plate. Right. Okay.
So, and then I've got my my draw tongs.
Yep. Got to have something serrated. Most of my pliers are not serrated, but your draw tongs have to be serrated so they can grip on there.
All right. So, are you guys watching this?
We are watching it. I'm not sure how much we can see. Can you move the camera just a teeny bit? Yeah, there we go. We don't need to see the front part. We don't see the back part.
So, are you going to see where I'm at here? There we go.
There we go.
All right. So, here we go.
All right. You watching this? Look at that, people. God, that is just the coolest thing. Because you're just pulling the rod, and as you pull the rod out, it just slips through the inside.
And then it flies off.
Right. And then your little pusher, then your little sacrificed pusher piece is still hooked on there.
Yep.
Yeah. But the cool thing is you can do a really long one, right? Like if you have a really long rod,
let's see how
you just have a little short piece, but you could have a couple of feet of tubing and you could make several turns, right? Several coils.
For sure. So in fact, I have another piece here. But let's just do it. Let's do a long one.
Okay. Okay.
And so this last material was annealed. Should we do one not annealed just to see what it looks like different?
Yeah. I have heard, by the way, that if you're going to do this technique and you're using, so if you're using seamless tubing, it's fine. Doesn't matter how you position the tubing. But if you're using a tubing that has a seam, you have to make sure that the seam is lined up with the axis of the curve so that you're compressing the seam rather than stretching the seam, or you'll bust it out, right?
Yep.
So if the J-shaped hook bit is facing up, I'm just for you all in Instagram viewer land, if the J-shaped hook is facing up, the seam in the tubing has to be running on the inside of that J-shaped hook. If you have seamed tubing, like if you made your own, for example.
All right, are we ready for this?
Are we ready? All right, people, watch the end of the thing. Oh my God, that is just so cool. Oh,
I slipped.
And now it leaves the frame. And now, boom. That is so cool, Chris. So the brilliance of this, peeps, right? Like my little things, I'm bending it by hand and I'm having to try to get it to be in an even circle. And I didn't do badly, but it isn't 100% perfect. Whereas Chris's is going to be the exact same diameter, all of those curves, right?
Yep.
Hold yours up, Chris, so people can see the difference. Because see how mine isn't quite perfect? Look at his. This is perfect. Loving it.
So, and the nice thing about this is that you take a piece of, silver tubing, and you do this, and then you slice it, and then you've got some hoop earrings or some sort of very light hollow form to work with.
Super strong, because the circle doesn't want to collapse. Super strong, but very lightweight. Because so visually massive, but actually not so heavy, which is freaking brilliant.
So
both in terms of wearability and because of the cost of the metal. Sorry.
Curly Moth just asked whether or not it's always the same diameter. Now,
such a good question.
Here's a fantastic question, because the diameter of your tubing depends on, one, the thickness of your tubing and the angle of your bend.
Right.
So if you and let's do a small one. Let's do a tiny one. I'll show you. So since this is a smaller tube, we ended up getting, or a medium-sized tube, we ended up getting kind of a medium-sized circle.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
For your mandrel, does the mandrel have to be exactly the same size as the inner diameter of the tube, or does it have to be a little teeny bit smaller?
It can have a little bit of slop to it.
A little bit of slop. So you can actually use the same mandrel on a couple of different sizes of tubing.
Yeah, you want to make sure you're close, though.
Right, because again, if it's too small, you're going to get collapse when it bends. If the mandrel is too small, it won't fill up enough of the inside of the tubing to keep it from collapsing. And if the tubing is too small, you won't be able to thread it on the mandrel.
So this next piece, I'll show you. The tubing itself. So this is what we had used before. You see kind of the diameter of the tube.
Right.
This is what we're going to use now.
Okay. So it's much smaller diameter tubing.
Very, very tiny. So I have, same thing, music wire. And the problem with this type of music wire is that it is flexible.
Right.
Which is good and bad. The bad part is that on this end here, there may be a tendency for the tube to unbend and uncurl this tip a little bit. So you might not get a uniform.
Okay. You mean the J shape?
Yeah.
As it's running through the tubing, it's actually being stressed and opened up a bit.
Yeah. Especially if you don't anneal. I'm using annealed tubing. So this is an experiment that we'll try, because I haven't used annealed tubing. And I still have my little pusher, and I've got two little tiny guys threaded onto this music wire.
It's actually going to have two coils come up. Hi, Michelle. Michelle from Lyreworks just joined us.
So you can't see on camera right now, but I'm going to add a little bit of lubrication to this, just like the other one.
Right. Especially just right on the end, right? On the hooky bit.
Yep. And then we will pop this through. This is the hard part for me because I can't see what I'm doing. All right.
Looks good.
All right. So here we go. I have my little pusher, and I've got two lengths of tubing on there.
Okay, and this is a much smaller one. So this, and you have a much sharper bend in your J-shaped mandrel. So it's going to be a much smaller diameter end result, the coil.
Yes.
Right, because that's what, I'm sorry, Curly Moth. That's what Curly Moth was asking, was about the size. So, so if you have a sharper bend in the mandrel, you're going to get a tighter, smaller diameter tube.
Now, what you can see here is that hook is being stressed, and it's springy. It's spring steel. It's made to be springy. But now I've got this small coil, but now it's starting to go a larger coil because of that stress. So we'll pull one off, and then the next one is going to be, as you can see, a larger if the wire I was using was more rigid.
Oh, okay, because it basically straightened out the end of your tool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So see
yeah,
how I not nearly as dramatic?
right. So if you were using tool steel that you had hardened and tempered,
Yes.
it would stay put.
Yeah. So
Right.
if I were to take this steel, let's
The
find it,
music wire.
and anneal it and then reharden it, I would be able to probably have it keep that curl.
Mm-hmm.
But now I can't find where the heck they went.
Is it time to clean up your bench, Chris? Maybe?
No, I've
No,
got work to do.
never.
Got work to do. So here's one of that same diameter tube, same technique.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the one I just did though. Huh. Weird. I think it fell on the floor.
It did leap, fly, be free. It's a spring.
Yeah.
It's a spring. Boing.
We'll find it. We'll find it.
You'll find it later.
So that's a technique that if you don't have a particular tool, you can go down to a hardware store, figure out what the diameter of the internal portion of your tube is, and then find some music wire or spring, or if you're using a larger tube. In fact, do you want to do just a test on some of this larger stuff?
Oh, do you have a mandrel that size with a bend in
No,
it?
I'm going to use a smaller mandrel to see what happens.
Well, do it. Let's see, because it'll probably tear it and bend it. But
I'm
hey,
pretty
it's
sure.
always good to know what the failure case is.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it will. But that's the fun of doing something like this. Is that we can
failure
show
case.
what happens. Where did my mandrel go?
I don't know.
Did you take
Michelle
my
says
mandrel?
bench diving.
Oh, yeah, it's on the ground. So
use that the middle sized one that you had, not the teeny weeny, not the
we're gonna
okay.
use this guy here.
There we go. Okay.
So for those of you just joining, this is a failure test. This is not actually doing what we
Failure.
want.
We're expecting failure, but we might be pleasantly surprised because you never know. Sometimes you think something's going to go horribly wrong, and then it doesn't.
I probably need a pusher on this too.
Yeah.
So, and this is not the rod that I was using before. This is the same diameter, but this is a piece of titanium rod.
Okay.
Works exactly the same. All right, so.
All right, let's see what happens.
Watch our failure here, or we'll be pleasantly surprised.
Or one of the other. Whoops.
Failure.
Did it straighten out the mandrel?
Yeah, it's straightening out the mandrel. So I have a slight curve on it, but what I'll need to do is since the titanium is a little bit flexible.
Oh, was that a titanium tube that you were trying to bend?
No, that was a titanium rod that I was on.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to use my mandrel here to create a more dramatic curve.
Okay, is that the titanium rod still?
This rod is the stainless.
Oh, okay.
So that should.
I like how you just repurpose the one hole draw plate to be your, just to bend your thing.
Oh yeah. All right.
Your thing. Your mandrel.
I can make some observations here that the tube where I was starting to bend is starting to flare up on the this end here.
Yeah. And
it does not like that added pressure without being supported. But let's find out.
Let's see.
Where are we at? You got it? All right, here we go.
I think it's just trying to straighten it out again.
Yep. Angry brass tube. That does not work. So, and then this is what you end up.
But it did deform it. That's what I was expecting it to do, is it to sort of split it and deform it in ways that, you got an interesting kind of pear shape, which I suppose if you were interested in making funny shaped tubes, that could be cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see what it looks like. Can you hold it up? in the better light.
Yeah.
Let me see the end. Yeah, yeah,
I mean, and it goes pretty a long ways. I mean,
yeah.
that's one you can use draw plates for tubing. I mean, that's exactly what we're doing here is we're creating a draw plate from this piece of steel and using it like you would traditionally a draw plate and tube, because you'd
Right.
stick your wire through a rod and then have a pusher and then pull it. And typically, if you do it the right way without like a curl on the end, you can draw your tubing down to a smaller diameter.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then, but you're using a center piece to help force
Correct.
it so that it can't collapse again, so that it doesn't buckle.
Yeah,
It just stretches, so it compresses the metal of the tubing. Yeah.
exactly.
And you can draw tubing without something in the core too, but it does have to be, I mean, because that's how Kent Ridley does it. He draws tubing without something inside.
Does he?
But it's
And
usually a little bit heavier metal. It depends how thin the metal is, I'm assuming. It's probably, if it's thinner, then it's more likely to collapse.
so one of the other methods I've had good luck with when it comes to very slight bends, not
Mm-hmm.
not like dramatic like we were just doing, but these type of pliers here.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why these work is because it has more support on both sides. When you can
Okay.
form the tube pretty easily if you really chomp down on it. But if you have just some very light pressure
Okay.
and move it, you'll be able to bend your tube without crushing it. So the
Right.
key, the
Okay. So
key to
is
these,
it changing is the diameter, is it going from round? Is it kind of going a little more oval?
no,
It's staying round?
yeah,
Okay.
I feel it. I feel it. It feels round. I don't feel any deformation.
Okay. Good,
Um,
good.
but the idea why this works is because it's being supported on two sides on that
Right.
curl. Anytime you have the force applied in one portion of the tube and not equally
It
applied to the
collapses
other, it
over.
collapses.
Yeah. Right.
But
It's just going to, yeah, taco. It's going to taco on you.
yeah, and so the key to this is actually just to put it in there, and I like to keep nice light pressure,
Mm-hmm.
and then I can just feed it and bend it with my fingers a little bit to create that curve.
Right.
But
So do you know the traditional way, like brass instruments were bent? You know, things like tubas or things like trombones and trumpets and things. You know how they do those?
drawn through a mandrel, isn't it?
To bend those curves?
Yeah.
No, I learned this years ago. I don't even remember who I learned it from. So they would take the brass tubing, right? Because that stuff, there are a couple of ways you can do it. One way you can do it is you can fill the tube with bismuth, which is a very low melting temperature metal.
Yeah.
And essentially what you've done is you've made it into a rod because you filled the brass tube with another softer metal. And you can bend it, manipulate it like however you want because it's solid. And then you heat it again, and you can bismuth melts in boiling water. So you basically just put the bent thing into a pan of boiling water, and the bismuth runs out, but it won't mix with the water. So then it just pieces, when the water cools, you have pieces of bismuth in the bottom of the pot, right?
Huh.
But the bismuth, I think, is not so great for things that are going to have your mouth on them, right?
Well, Pepto-Bismol is made from bismuth.
Is it? Well, maybe I'm wrong about that. So bismuth is one way of doing it, the low melting temperature metal. The other way you can do it, supposedly, I've never seen it done, but I've been told, is fill the brass rod with water and freeze it. And then when it's solid, you can manipulate it. And because it has the ice inside, you have to cap the ends, right? You have to put tape or something over the ends to keep the water in there, obviously. But while you've essentially done the same thing you do with the bismuth, that you have created a solid rod out of it, and then you bend it into whatever shape you want, and then you just let it warm up and the water runs out.
Weird.
Yeah. I have tried this technique, this sort of idea of this technique, using sand. because if you pack sand into a fairly large tube and tape the ends, you've done the same thing again of creating a solid rod because the sand is packed into the tube,
Yeah.
right? And I have done that, and it worked okay. I was bending a fairly large tube to make a section of a necklace, right?
Yeah.
It worked okay. It collapsed a little bit because there's never, with sand, there's always a little bit of airspace in there. And so, as things start to move, the grains start to move. So it was a little bit more oval in the center part than round. But it worked okay, and it wasn't super noticeable, the slightly oval bit. Because then, of course, you take the tape off the end and you let the sand run out, right? So it's super easy. Yeah.
Well, Jen just said, would wax work? And I would think that it probably would, because the compression strength, as long as you seal your tube up and it's not squirting out, I don't see why that wouldn't act exactly the same, because you're not going to be able to compress it like you would. Sand has a little granular kind of.
The idea with the sand is that it's easy to run it in and it's easy to run it out, right? Like you don't have to melt it out the way you do with bismuth or deal with the freezer or any of those things, right? But there are always upsides and downsides to everything. But yeah, in theory, you should be able to melt wax, fill the tube with wax. I would, again, probably put it in the freezer just to get it really good and cold.
Yeah.
And then bend it. But then you can bend it. You can just bend it. You could just bend it around a mandrel, and it's rod, so it's fine. Then you do with the wax. It's going to take a hot minute to melt it out, right? And it's like you're going to have to, that'll take a minute, but it'll probably work.
Yeah, I would think so. Especially when you can get little tiny wax sprues to insert into a tube, probably the same diameter.
No, you can get wax wires. I know. You could just slot the right one just right in.
Yep.
Be perfect.
Yep.
To try it. Now I'm going to have to try that.
Yeah.
It's probably a giant mess, right? Like, that's the problem with wax, is it can be just a giant mess.
Yeah. Well, that's the fun in having talks like this and having a community like Little Metal Foxes and everyone else, is that, when you watch a demonstration like this, I'm the first to tell you that I don't know all of the techniques. You don't know all the techniques, but the fun thing is that we may not have been taught something, but a collective mind of going, how would I accomplish fixing this problem? You come up with
one of our other favorite bits of trivia that has to do with brass instruments?
What's that?
How to fix the dent.
Let me think.
So let's say your tube on your trumpet has a dent.
Yeah.
How do you fix that? You're Wynton Marsalis and somebody banged into you and dented your trumpet or something. And so now, or your trombone, how do you fix that? Some of the dents won't matter, would still be able to, the instrument would still slide, it would probably still sound fine, but some of the dents would actually probably prevent it from being playable, right?
I'm guessing pressurized something.
You would think, but there's a simpler, low-tech method.
Hot water.
No.
All right.
Okay, so, and I've never done it. I've just read about it. I've been told about it. So you take the portion of because all those things come apart, right? So you take the piece that has the dent in it.
Yeah.
And you thread into it from either side of the dent a ball bearing, which is exactly the diameter of the center of that tube.
Okay.
And then you do this. And basically what you're doing is you're bouging it back out. You're using the ball bearing as a tiny hammer from either side of the dent to just and knock it out.
I would imagine you'd probably be able to
love that. I'm sorry, what?
You might be able to accomplish something similar by filling it with water and freezing it too.
I don't know, because I think it would just freeze in the shape of with the dent, right? The whole thing is you've gotta, it's like body work, right? You've got to be able to hammer it from the opposite side of where the thing pushed in. You have to push it back out.
Yeah.
So, you have your stainless steel ball bearing.
Water would work similarly if you're able to fully seal up both ends, and then the expanding water when it froze would but it wouldn't be reliable like the bouging.
Yeah, but it might actually split it
Yeah,
wouldn't necessarily push out the spot that you want it to be pushed out. See, the
yeah,
brilliance of the ball bearing is it doesn't change anything about the parts of the tubing that are fine,
that's
right?
awesome.
It isn't gonna alter anything. All it's gonna do is knock the dent out of the one
Yeah,
place that has a dent. So I don't
I
know. Those kinds of things. I love those kinds of like low tech but elegant solutions to a
yeah,
problem. They make me happy. Just
I
knowing
mean,
that there's someone somewhere fixed a trombone with a ball bearing
yeah,
makes me happy.
that's pretty awesome. I love it.
Well, I should probably go because it's time for me to have dinner.
I
But it was
haven't had mine
so
either.
cool. So cool to see your tool. That is so awesome. Before I go, I should say a couple of words about classes that are coming up because Jennifer's always very good about doing that. Um, and it's all Jennifer this month of October. I don't have anything on the schedule right now. It's okay, people. Things are coming. I've got some stuff coming. There'll be cool ones.
Are
But
you?
Jennifer's doing a couple of new classes, and I think there are only like 1 or 2 seats left in these. They've been pretty popular. So the pearls and half drilled stones is coming up day after tomorrow. I think there's still a seat in that Thursday evening. And then on Saturday, she's doing two-prong setting, alternative stone setting, two-prong setting. So she's going to teach you how to do the collar that goes under the stone so that it's supported when you put just 2 prongs to hold them, which is pretty cool. Jennifer's really brilliant with the stone setting stuff. So she always has a million tricks and ways to simplify things. And then
She's
she's
playing with
also,
she's
she's
playing
like,
with a new tool too.
yes. Oh, I know. She told me. I'm
Did
not
she?
going to give anything away. Yeah, she told
Oh,
me that
yeah,
she was already playing with some of the. She like opened the box. She did a reel for the unboxing,
yeah, I
and
saw that.
then and she's like, I've been doing this, and I already have ideas, and I want this, and I want to tell Chris I have all these things that he needs. And I'm like, you go, girl.
Well,
Um,
I told her, and I'll tell you the same thing, that as you guys are using those tools, because the ones that I sent her this time were prototypes. They weren't the ones that she had ordered. So
mhm.
I told her to share those with the collective mind and
Okay,
figure out what you want to do. And
and I have the ones you sent to me.
anytime you have like an idea and you like, what if?
What if?
Yeah.
What if I dot dot dot.
And you have some X mandrels too that she's going to give you.
Okay, yeah, she mentioned that. So I want to try those out and see because I know, you know that I had my doubts about those, and then you were like, "No, I did it. It worked really well." So I'm gonna have to,
You
see how
didn't
it goes.
share with me you had doubts.
I had doubts about how efficiently you were going to be able to push the wire into the cross,
Did I tell
right?
you? Did I tell you my favorite method?
No, what's your favorite method?
I've got 2. One I prefer more than the other. The first one, the not so preferred method, is to just sit with a countertop in front of you and wrap it and push it and wrap it and push it.
Right, just
And
put it against the corner or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
the preferred method is to use a jewelry pusher to wrap it and then use the pusher to push the wire in.
Oh, you mean like a bezel pusher?
Yeah,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
that's
Okay.
so far that's my preferred method
Okay.
because
All right.
I did use my fingers too, but
Tiresome.
I
Hard
lost
on
my
the
finger.
finger. I lost a finger. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it went.
So before I let you guys go, I also wanted to say that on the 13th, Jennifer, which is a Thursday, so these are the Thursday evening classes that she does her little stone setting things. She's doing another brand new one, which is tapered tube and crown settings. And that one, unfortunately, is sold out. But, let us know if it was like you were super sad that it was sold out. And who knows, maybe she'll put it on the schedule again sooner than 6 months from now, which is usually what happens when we have something that sells out. If there were enough people that tell us that they're interested, that it makes it worth it to run the class again really soon, she'll do it, right? So you just have to speak up, peeps, if you're really interested. And then she's also doing gravity casting for stone setting in the middle of the month. And yeah, and I think that's everything for October. So got a couple of seats in the pearl and half drilled stones and the 2 prong settings. So, you know, those are good. All right. That looks beautiful, Chris.
Yeah. Just a little
That's
bit of work
impressive.
on it. And no crushing.
And no crushing. So the upside of the pliers is you can do any size you want. The downside of the pliers is if you want to do repeatable ones, it's time consuming. And so your J jig, maybe that's what you want to call it, your J jig, will give you the same, once you have a tool that's been hardened and tempered, will give you the same diameter every time, right?
Yeah.
It's the advantage. And you can just like whip off a whole coil, and then you just cut down the coil like you would with a regular group of jump rings.
I say experiment. Come up with an idea, spend some time, go buy some cheap tubing. If it works with copper and brass, it'll work with silver. So
absolutely. And gold.
Yep.
Yeah. And if you want to make big hoops, big statement hoops out of gold, you do not want them to be solid because it's going to cost the moon. But it also is really heavy. Gold is really heavy. So, you know.
Brass tube looks just like real gold when it's polished.
That's true. The red brass, the jeweler's brass does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming and showing us that. That was really fun. I love seeing stuff like that. And you know, mine was fun, but yours was funner. Can you hold yours up?
Well, the cool thing is that when you get together and you do something like this and you both like have tips and tricks you want to share, mine may not be the same as yours, but they're just as useful. And you know, if you go down to the hardware store, they may have that one versus having to fabric cobble mine together.
Yeah, fabric cobble. I like that.
Yeah.
But fabric cobbling is good too.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. That was tons of fun. I'm glad I got to be here for that one because, like, you know, me and rings, right? It's all about that.
Oh yeah.
All right, my friend. Well, thanks a bunch.
Yeah.
And we'll catch you up on the flip side. All
See
right.
you guys.
Bye, guys.